Rome, May 14th, 964. Dawn broke over the city, revealing a shocking scene inside the Lateran Palace. Pope John XII was dead, not praying, not peacefully, but in the middle of a wild orgy. Witnesses whispered he'd collapsed in bed with another man's wife, felled by a sudden stroke. It was a disgraceful end, even for Rome, but for John XII, it was the final shameful act in a life of outrageous scandal. How did a reckless teenager become head of the Christian world? His story reveals a dark time when the Vatican felt more like a pleasure den than God's house. Rewind to 937, a boy named Octavian was born. His father? Alberic II, the iron-fisted Prince of Rome. Alberic didn't just rule the city, he owned the church. He used it for money and power, keeping mistresses inside the sacred Lateran Palace. Young Octavian grew up surrounded by greed, lust, and political knives. His lessons weren't about faith, they were about seduction, manipulation, and grabbing whatever he wanted. When Alberic died in 954, he forced the Roman clergy to swear an oath. They would make his teenage son Octavian the next Prince of Rome, and the next Pope. At just 17, Octavian seized control. Bound by that oath, the clergy elected him Pope. He took the name John XII. Never had a pope been so young or so utterly unprepared for holiness. For John XII, the papacy was a toy box. Gold and power funded his every whim. Debauched parties erupted in the Lateran Palace almost immediately. Bishop Liutprand of Cremona documented the chaos. John turned the pope's home into a brothel, keeping a harem, noble wives, widows, even nuns inside the Vatican. Sacred spaces meant nothing. He'd celebrate Mass at dawn and host wild orgies by dusk, sometimes in the same rooms. But sex was just one flavour of his corruption. John XII treated church offices like trinkets at a market, selling bishoprics to the highest bidder. The church treasury? His personal party fund. He blew it on lavish feasts, reckless gambling on dice games, and thrilling horse races. He gambled so wildly he'd even bet sacred relics, bones of saints, precious crosses, like they were cheap baubles. His blasphemies were jaw-dropping. He toasted the health of demons at his banquets. He called upon pagan gods during Christian festivals. He once stabled his prized racehorses inside St. Peter's Basilica itself, the holiest place in Christendom.
Even in the rough-and-tumble 10th century, this was too much. Romans grumbled. European kings grew alarmed. Whispers of rebellion started among the clergy, hardened as they were to everyday graft. John then made a fatal political blunder. In 961, desperate for protection against local enemies, he crowned Otto I, the powerful German king, as Holy Roman Emperor. But John couldn't help himself. He almost immediately started scheming against the very emperor he'd just created. Otto I was a stern, disciplined soldier king. When reports reached him of John's betrayals and the sordid parties, he was horrified. In 963, Otto marched on Rome with a fierce, well-ordered army. His mission? Clean out the Vatican. John, smelling trouble, didn't stick around. He fled the city like a thief in the night, grabbing the papal treasury and several favourite concubines, hiding out in the hill town of Tivoli. There, he kept the party going while Otto occupied Rome. Emperor Otto did something extraordinary. He called a church council, a synod, to put the absent pope on trial. It was practically unheard of. The charges laid against John XII were a litany of nightmares. Selling church offices, simony, check, murder, check, incest, check, sacrilege, double check. Liutprand recorded the accusations, turning the Lateran into a brothel, sleeping with relatives, ordaining deacons in stables, skipping communion during Mass, invoking Jupiter and Venus during prayers. The violence was chilling. He'd allegedly castrated a deacon who died from it. He blinded his own confessor. He ordered the deaths of rivals. One cardinal claimed John tried to assault him. Another said the Pope set prices for holy jobs based on how handsome the applicants were. The synod, backed by Otto, declared John XII deposed. They elected a new pope, Leo VIII. But John wasn't finished. The moment Otto's army left Rome for a while, John stormed back with hired thugs and loyalists. He clawed his way back to the papal throne by force. His revenge was swift and savage. Supporters of his deposition were hunted down, tortured, executed. The bishop who led the charges against him had his right hand chopped off and his tongue cut out. Others were exiled, thrown into dungeons or simply vanished. John proved he wasn't just depraved, he was viciously cruel. His second reign was wilder, shorter, and even more desperate. It was like he was trying to cram a lifetime of sin into a few months. The parties at the Lateran grew bigger, louder, more debauched. Prostitutes, married nobles, women sworn to the church, all tangled together in the nightly chaos. And it was during one of these frantic orgies, deep into the night of May 14th, 964, that it finally ended. John was locked in a passionate embrace with a nobleman's wife, Stephana, or Stefanetta, when he suddenly stiffened. Witnesses saw convulsions, then paralysis. A stroke, likely. The Pope died right there, tangled in the sheets of his own shame.
John XII, dying mid-orgy, became the ultimate symbol of the Church's darkest age. A period historians grimly call the pornocracy, the rule of the harlots. Even his allies couldn't spin this one. Rumours flew. Murdered by a jealous husband, perhaps? But the stroke in the act story stuck. His funeral was a tense, hushed affair. Many Romans refused to attend. He was buried quietly, without the grand pomp owed to popes, an attempt to bury the scandal with the man. If this twisted chapter left you stunned, you need to be here. Like now, if you demand more history uncensored. Share with rebels who hunt hidden truths. Subscribe. We're tearing open history's sealed tombs daily. Bell on. So you're first to witness the next revelation. The past is darker than you know. Stay curious.